Silent Hill F, the upcoming entry in the Silent Hill series, is set to launch on September 25. It marks the second major installment in the Silent Hill revival project, following the release of Silent Hill 2 Remake in 2024. While specific details about the narrative and gameplay are currently limited, fans are eagerly awaiting further insights into this newest chapter of the iconic horror franchise. Just last weekend, a gameplay demo for Silent Hill F was revealed. While the responses have been mixed, with some people excited and others more skeptical, I've got my own take on it. So today, I want to take you on a deep dive into what this game is offering, from its lore and atmosphere to gameplay mechanics and beyond. For this analysis, I've also drawn insights from multiple sources like IGN, GameRant, and Game Informer to provide a more rounded perspective. Also, just a quick disclaimer, this video is based on my own observation, research, and community insights. While I haven't played Silent Hill F directly yet, I've immersed myself in the game before sharing these reflections. So with that said, let's dive in. Silent Hill F, the next major entry in the Silent Hill franchise, is slated for release in September 2025. As a quick refresher, Konami originally launched Silent Hill back in 1999 as a response to the success of Resident Evil in 1996. While it started off as a counter to Capcom's horror hit, Silent Hill quickly evolved into its own iconic series, known for its deep psychological horror and haunting atmosphere. Neobards Entertainment, a Taiwanese indie studio known for titles like Onimusha, Warlords, and Resident Evil Resistance, has developed Silent Hill F. This release surprised fans with one major twist. The game won't be set in the iconic town of Silent Hill, Maine. For longtime fans, that's a game changer. The series has always been deeply connected to its namesake location. Even in Silent Hill 4, which technically takes place outside Silent Hill, the main antagonist is still linked to the events of the first game. The decision to set Silent Hill F in 1960s Japan undoubtedly raised eyebrows among fans. After all, how can a Silent Hill game exist without any connection to its namesake town? Interestingly, even the game's writer, Ryukishi 7, the acclaimed creator behind the Higurashi series, expressed confusion over this concept. Known for his adept handling of psychological horror across both anime and visual novels, Ryukishi07 admitted in an interview on the official Silent Hill YouTube channel that he, too, was taken aback by the game's non-location in Silent Hill. However, he later explained that while Silent Hill is indeed a real place with a dark past, the core of the series lies in depicting characters' battles with the evil within themselves, sin, dissatisfaction, and inner turmoil, through visually striking means. In essence, Silent Hill is more than just a physical location. It's a psychological landscape. This perception aligns with the vision of producer Motoyo Komoto, who has spearheaded the Silent Hill revival since 2023. He aims to transform Silent Hill from being synonymous with a single haunted town to being synonymous with the psychological horror genre as a whole. The game will feature compositions by Akira Yamaoka, Kensuke Inage, Dai, and Sushi. Of course, fans of the series will instantly recognize Yamaoka. He's been the musical backbone of the franchise since its inception. With his involvement, we can undoubtedly anticipate a haunting, emotional, and eerie soundtrack that elevates the horror experience. After watching the trailer, I can see why some people are saying that this game doesn't feel like a Silent Hill game, or that it should have been a completely separate horror title. Honestly, I kind of agree. The name Silent Hill has always carried a very specific meaning, and without the town itself, it does feel like that meaning starts to slip away. However, at the same time, I'm not prepared to make a judgment too hastily. We still haven't seen the entire narrative, and the developers have made it clear that they aim to expand what Silent Hill can be. If the creators intend to move beyond the physical town and focus more on the psychological horror that defines the series, I'm willing to accept that. For me, as long as the game continues to explore themes like trauma, guilt, and the darkness within the human mind, it will still feel like Silent Hill in essence. The setting may be different, but if the emotional and psychological weight is still present, then it captures what Silent Hill has always been about. I think of it similarly to how I perceive Resident Evil without zombies. Over time, the franchise has evolved, its enemies shifting from mindless zombies to Las Plagas parasites capable of using weapons, and then even further in Resident Evil 7 and 8, where we faced entirely new types of monsters. Despite these changes, however, it was still Resident Evil, and it worked. The tone, the atmosphere, the tension, all of it still felt right. That's how I feel about Silent Hill F. Even if it takes place in 1960s Japan with a brand new cast and setting, if it remains true to the psychological core that defines the series, then I am all for it. The story of Silent Hill F takes place in the 1960s in a small, rural Japanese mountain town named Ebisugaoka. Once a flourishing location thanks to its coal mining and dam construction industries, the town has since fallen into decline, befitting a setting that already feels haunted by history. This is also where we meet the game's protagonist, Hinako Shimizu, a high school student struggling under the weight of expectations from her family, friends, and society. Once cheerful and full of energy, Hinako has grown distant and withdrawn. She rarely smiles anymore, and it's clear that something inside her has changed. Thanks to sources such as IGN and GameRant, we get a glimpse into her backstory through collectible notes and journal entries found throughout the game. Hinako lives with an abusive, alcoholic father, and a mother who seems unable to stop the abuse. Her only source of comfort used to be her older sister, Junko, but Junko eventually left after getting married, leaving Hinako to endure everything on her own. One day, after another harsh scolding from her father, Hinako runs away from home and ends up reuniting with her friends in town. The first is Iwai Shu, a childhood friend. Shu comes from a family of physicians, so he's knowledgeable about medicine and healing. He treats everyone kindly, regardless of gender, and doesn't overthink the idea of male-female friendships. Next is Nishida Rinko, the classic rule follower and gossip lover. She's quick to catch on to the latest rumors and has a bit of a crush on Shu. The most mysterious of the three is Igarashi Sakuko. According to the game's official website, she's dreamy and laid back, with her head often in the clouds. However, she comes from a family that runs the local Shinto shrine, and she participates in ritual duties. This detail raises some questions, especially considering that during the game, there are scenes featuring what looks like a kamon. Could that symbol be tied to Sakuko's family? It's hard to say for now, but it adds a layer of mystery to her character. Aside from these main characters, we also briefly see others whose roles remain unclear, like a mysterious bridesmaid figure seen in trailers. Their significance in the story is still unknown. As for the enemies, we've seen a number of creatures featured in the gameplay demo and trailers. According to the official Silent Hill F website, some of them have names like Kashimashi, Ayakakashi, Oyamoi, and Ara Abare, and their names might hint at their characteristics. For example, Kashimashi means noisy in Japanese, so maybe that creature is especially loud or erratic. Ayakakashi seems to reference Kakashi, means scarecrow, which fits with what we've seen visually in the demo, and so on. While we don't yet know their exact behavior, these name meanings let us make some pretty educated guesses. Now, let's talk about the story and themes. Although the full plot of Silent Hill F is still under wraps, many fan theories have been circulating. Some speculate about the meaning behind the F in the title, while others focus on the thematic direction the game might take. As mentioned earlier, writer Ryukishi07 stated that Silent Hill has always been more than just a place. It's about the internal struggles characters face. With that in mind, Silent Hill F might center on Hinako's own psychological battle. Some fans have even compared her to James Sunderland from Silent Hill 2, speculating that she may carry a similarly tragic mental burden. But of course, we'll have to wait and see. Throughout the demo, there are moments that suggest deeper emotional and supernatural layers, like Hinako feeling betrayed by Sakuko, who apparently calls her a traitor. There's also talk of a family curse, possibly linked to Hinako or Sakuko. This could mean the story revolves around a generational curse, but filtered through Hinako's deteriorating mental state. At this point, all we can really do is wait and see how it all plays out. But judging by the themes we've seen so far, loss, isolation, trauma, identity, it's clear that Silent Hill F is staying true to the emotional and psychological horror the series is known. In early August, the gameplay demo for Silent Hill F was finally released, and fan reactions have been mixed. Some people are pretty open to it, while others feel like the gameplay strays too far from what Silent Hill is supposed to be. Either way, here's how the gameplay works so far. The game is played from a third-person, over-the-shoulder perspective, which is pretty typical for modern horror games. I'm no graphics expert, so I can't give a deep technical breakdown, but personally, I really enjoyed the visual style. The movement of the characters feels smooth and satisfying enough. That said, there are definitely a few areas where things could be improved. For example, in one scene from the demo, when Hinako interacts with a drawer, the animation doesn't actually show her opening it. The drawer just opens on its own. It's a small detail, but one that breaks a bit of immersion. Still, overall, I found the experience enjoyable. Now, onto the combat system, which is probably the most debated part of the demo. One iconic element returns: the iron pipe, a classic Silent Hill weapon. But Hinako also wields other melee weapons like a knife, sickle, and even a naginata. According to multiple sources, there are no firearms in the game. Combat is entirely melee-based. This decision has definitely divided the fan base. Some players dislike the idea of fighting without a gun, and honestly, I get it. On the other hand, considering the setting, 1960s Japan, it makes sense. A high school girl wouldn't realistically have access to firearms. Still, I can't help but wonder, could they have added some kind of ranged option, like a bow or slingshot, that could have balanced things out without breaking immersion? From what we've learned, including info from PlayStation Blog and Game Rant, Silent Hill F is leaning heavily into close-range survival. One interesting mechanic is that weapons break after a certain number of uses, kind of like in Resident Evil Outbreak. This adds a layer of tension. You'll really have to think before swinging. Do you fight, or do you run? It's that classic fight-or-flight dilemma all over again. Another unique aspect is the delay animation just before you land a hit on an enemy. Some fans love this, some hate it. It's definitely new for Silent Hill, and whether it works or not will come down to personal preference. Personally, I don't mind it. I've always been more focused on story than gameplay mechanics, anyway. Then there's the stamina bar. Every time Hinako attacks or dodges, her stamina drains. While this seems like a new mechanic, it's not entirely out of place in the series. In Silent Hill 2, for example, James slows down after running for a while and needs to rest. The difference here is that stamina now affects combat directly, which again has led to some debate. Whether that's a good or bad thing is up to the player. There's also a lock-on system that lets you focus on an enemy, and a counter-attack mechanic, signaled by a red aura, around your opponent. You'll need to time things just right to counter effectively, which adds a bit of strategy to the fights. Beyond that, there's a sanity bar, which drains when using special attacks. You've got 3 main stats to manage: health, stamina, and sanity. These can all be upgraded using faith points, the in-game currency you earn by trading consumables, items that would otherwise refill those meters during combat. Now, although the game is being described as action-heavy, I'm not entirely sure that label fits. With breakable weapons, limited stamina, and no firearms, I feel like players will often be forced to sneak past enemies or run away rather than face them head-on. Charging through the game like you're John Rambo will probably get you, or rather, Hinako, killed. Now, setting aside the combat system, let's talk about 3 other elements that really stood out to me: the sound effects, BGM, and voice acting. In my opinion, these aspects are already solid. The sound effects feel immersive and natural. Whether you're just walking around or landing a hit on an enemy, everything sounds smooth and believable. The BGM especially shines during enemy encounters. It does a great job of building up tension and fear, mixing suspenseful tones that keep you on edge without being overbearing. The real star for me, though, is the voice acting. From what we've heard in the demo, the performances feel incredibly natural, so much so that it almost feels like you're watching an anime, not playing a horror game. Hinako's voice in particular stands out to me. As someone who's been a long-time anime fan, the Japanese voice cast feels like a perfect fit. The emotional delivery is spot on, and the subtitles also feel well translated and in sync with the tone of the dialogue. Now, let's talk about the environmental design. Aside from that one issue with object interaction I mentioned earlier, I think the world design is pretty impressive, but it does feel a little different from the usual Silent Hill. That's probably because this game is set in 1960s Japan, rather than the fictional foggy town we're used to. So yeah, it's understandable if it doesn't immediately feel like Silent Hill to some players. That being said, I personally think the representation of 1960s Japan looks quite good. I'm not sure if anyone who have ever lived in Japan would say otherwise, but to me, it looks authentic. Also, the foggy atmosphere, the twisted, nightmarish realm, they still carry the essence of Silent Hill, even if the setting has changed. I get why some fans might say, this doesn't feel like Silent Hill at all. And honestly, that's fair. But from my perspective, I'd say, let's give it a chance first. If the themes, tension, and psychological horror are still there, then maybe Silent Hill is less about where you are and more about what you're going through. With all the good, the bad, and the mixed reactions from fans, I can honestly say that Silent Hill F is a game I'm excited to play. Just like how Resident Evil evolved, from fighting classic zombies in Raccoon City to battling werewolves in rural Europe and exploring psychic abilities through Rosemary Winters, Silent Hill is clearly going through its own transformation. But at its heart, it's still what it's always been, a deep, psychological horror experience rooted in human trauma. While there's definitely more that could be explored, I'll leave that to others who may know the series better than I do. My knowledge of Silent Hill is limited, and I'm just sharing what I've seen and felt so far. So if you have more context, insights, or theories, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks for watching. This is Silmina, signing off.